So before we get into the Mariner news, and unfortunately it's bad news, I actually have some good news. A couple of good news things. One I'll talk about now, one I'll talk about at the end of the video. But your boy has a new job. Well, it's a new job, but it's an old job. I am back with NBC Sports / Roto World. Super excited, super appreciative to people like DJ Short who are bringing me back. As some of you know, I spent 6 years with NBC Sports. Best job I ever had, and I'm super excited I'm getting a chance to do it again. Go to rotoworld.com. You can see my latest article on the top 10 fantasy prospects for 2024. I am super excited and very appreciative. Comes at a great time to get this started, and yeah, pretty excited. Bad news for the Seattle Mariners. Bryan Woo, according to Ryan Divish, who, makes stuff up here and there. Just kidding. Will go on the injured list with elbow inflammation, according to general manager Justin Hollander. This is similar to when Woo went on the IL last season. The good news is he's already undergone an MRI. It came back clean with no damage to the UCL. The hope is that Woo can get the inflammation out of his elbow in 7 and 10 days, according to Divish, and resume throwing. So here's the good news. The good news is what I just said, that they are hopeful that this is a short-term injury. It's obviously great that the MRI has already come back clean. That's huge. It's not always a guarantee for not a long-term injury, but it looks like he's avoided the structural damage, and it looks like you're avoiding those dreaded 3 words that I will not mention, just out of good luck. The good news also is this is your 5th starter, right? As much as I love the starting pitching depth of the Seattle Mariners, and it's now tested, or not even the depth, I love the big 3 of this starting rotation an awful lot. And it's not one of the big 3 that are going down. I don't want anyone to get hurt. Obvious point should be obvious, but just in case it's not, I certainly don't want to see anybody get hurt. But you would be kidding yourself if you said that an injury to Luis Castillo, George Kirby, and Logan Gilbert is the same thing as an injury to Bryan Woo. It just would. You still got your big 3. You still have Bryce Miller. And it looks like your 5th starter is going to be Emerson Hancock to open the year. And I'm fine with Emerson Hancock as your opening 5th starter because it's just that. It's your opening 5th starter. There are going to be lots of teams that have worse worse 5th starters in their opening day rotation than Emerson Hancock, or equal. We saw Hancock last year. We know his strengths. We know his weaknesses. We know he's healthy, so that's good. Last year, season ends with an injury. But we know that he's not ready, and he may never be ready to be a mid-rotation arm. As your 5th starter, and especially knowing with, I don't expect the Mariners to do this, but if they have to, because you get some off days in the early part of the year, you can play around with that 5th starter position a little bit. I don't have the schedule right in front of me because everyone knows I'm not that good at this. I should have it just sitting right in front of me. But there is a chance that they could play with that, just knowing how April schedules work. Here's the bad news. You heard me correct myself when I was talking about the Seattle Mariner pitching depth. It's tested early because behind Hancock, you don't have anything that I would be even remotely confident starting a baseball game with. And I'm confident is the wrong word for Hancock. Acceptable. There's nothing even acceptable behind Emerson Hancock starting games. You would be looking at an injury to another starter. You would be looking at bullpen days. That would be problematic, especially when you consider what's going on with this pitching staff. Now, I have a video coming out tomorrow that's going to talk about this pitching staff in a more complete basis. But we might as well get into it now. On paper, this pitching staff is not as good as last year. It's talented. It's certainly talented for all the reasons I just explained with the big 3 And with guys like Andres Munoz in the back of that bullpen, but it's not as good as it was opening the year. I don't think that's a hot take whatsoever. And you're immediately tested with your depth. And like I mentioned, that it's great that the MRI came back clean. It's great that they think he's going to be able to throw in about a week and a half. Far from a guarantee. And this is not a Mariner thing. This is a Major League Baseball thing. Never believe what a general manager or a president of baseball operations, a POBO, an owner, a coach, never believe anyone when they tell you a time frame for a pitcher. Just look at Robbie Ray last year. You don't have to go far to look at a case of where optimism quickly waned into out for the year. Just the way they work. They are never going to be pessimistic about this stuff for reasons that are probably obvious. So, yeah, it's great that they think he's going to be able to start throwing in a couple weeks, but it's not a guarantee. And you are talking now about a team that has exactly 5 competent starters. And I would really feel more confident if I had to say it. 4 good starters and 1 big question mark. And when you're starting pitching is the strength of your team, getting tested this early is not good. And I will be curious to see how aggressive they are if Hancock struggles. Be really interested. Especially if Woo is out more like a couple months instead of what I would assume is a month at least. Because, 7 to 10 days without throwing, then you got to build that arm strength back up. I can't see him making starts until May. Hope I'm wrong. Be great if he was making starts like immediately came off the IL. I don't think that's going to happen. And the other thing with Woo is, this is a guy who, number one, had an injury last year and was shut down. And number 2, has just not thrown a lot of professional innings. Not just not thrown a lot of professional innings, has just not thrown a lot of innings. This is a little bit scary. It's not the end of the world. And thank goodness. And I feel bad saying this because it comes across like he's a sacrificial lamb of some sort. Far from it. Far from it. But there's no denying that an injury to Bryan Woo is a lot more sustainable for the Seattle Mariners than an injury to Luis Castillo, George Kirby, or Logan Gilbert, or even Bryce Miller. It's just the reality of the situation. So, how concerned are you by this? Because on a scale of 1 to 10 of concern here, I'm at like a 6.5, which is weird for the 5th starter of a Major League Baseball team. But because of the lack of depth that they have in this rotation, it's got to be around there. You could argue 7, you could argue 8, you could argue 4 or 5. But I'm curious, on the scale of 1 to 10, where are you at? All right, the other cool thing is, it's not done yet, but I have almost finalized something to start selling my OI gear. I think there's enough of a fan base, and based on some tweets that I got when asked about it, that suggests that you guys would be interested. And I think it'd be really fun. I just think, number one, the logo that Samuel Joseph created for this thing is so freaking good that it has to be on a t-shirt and it has to be on a hat. What I'm kind of working on now is trying to make a hat in this color, and with the MOW. Wouldn't that look cool? Like the M trident, O, and then the W trident down. Similar to kind of like what you see with like the White Sox with intertwining, but instead kind of up and down. Don't you think that would look cool? I think it'd look cool. So yeah, that's going to be starting to come up, and I'd really appreciate the support there because, I have a new job, but there's still a lot going on, as you guys probably know. Please hit like and subscribe. I'm going to post some divisional previews these next coming days, maybe one tonight, for sure Tuesday and Wednesday. I'm going to post a bunch. The team stuff just didn't do well enough. It's too hard to do a video where only 30 or 40 people are watching. With all due respect to you guys, I love you, but it takes time to do the research and stuff. I think it just makes sense to do divisional preview stuff, and then we'll do a big one for the Mariners at the end. I will not be able to go live for the game because I will be working, but we'll have still, no matter what, the one thing I will always promise you is there will be a video after every single game. I just can't promise when it'll be posted, but I will have it up. I appreciate your support. Let's get to 1,500. Let's get to 1,500 by the end of April. We're pretty close now, so I think that's a reasonable ask. But yeah, please let me know what you think in the comments about this Bryan Woo injury, because it could be nothing, but it's not a good start. I forgot to hit the end button.